Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley, and we got an absolutely fantastic guest that's coming on today. And we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, primarily cracking the code as it relates to leadership and a lot of other different things that we're going to talk about. And this guest right here, I just find her intriguing because she's doing so many things, and she's going to share some of her. She's going to talk about her books, and she's going to talk about some of the techniques, and she is going to talk about inspiring you, us, us all. So whichever platform you're watching the show from, all you have to do if you want to be part of the conversation is just go to the comments and ask this great doctor any question that you might have, and I promise you we'll get you an answer. But as you already know, I can't even start the show without talking to my absolutely wonderful executive producer and co-host, Dr. Michelle Cooley. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And this is an interesting topic, and the information that was supplied to us and us reviewing it it's going to be very educational. So I'm really excited about this. I know you are. Exactly. You like conversations and topics. It's like it has you think, not that you really deep thinking. You're like, wow, I never thought about that, or the way someone described that. So I'm looking forward to the show today.
Wow. And Dr. Clem is going to be joining us a little bit. How you doing today, Dr. Clem?
I am doing outstanding. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking for a fantastic show also.
Man, I tell you, man, this guest, I can't even take it no longer. Michelle, can you please introduce the title of the show, the purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely wonderful guest that we have?
Well, yes. So the title of today's show is Cracking the Leadership Code of Life with the Power of Authentic Harmony. And we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Pauline Crawford. She's the founder and chief vision officer of Corporate Heart International. She's an author, international speaker, and program director for the International University of Entreprenology. We're going to talk about discussing embracing human excellence, empowering men, women, boys, and girls to develop the necessary skills to inspire, motivate, and engage others with love, how clear and honest communication is the cornerstone of any successful life, and talk about building diversity, harmony, and how cultural competence is essential. So I'm going to summarize her resume. So her bio, basically, as a visionary British leader, Dr. Pauline Crawford is the founder and Chief Vision Officer of Corporate Heart International, President of the Rotary Club of Global Impact, and the Program Director for the International University of Anthropology. Additionally, she holds the esteemed position of G100 Global Chair for Positive Masculinity. Dr. Crawford is recognized as an accomplished international speaker and author of The Power of Authentic Harmony. Her transformative expertise has garnered success with clients from various sectors, including well-renowned companies such as Barclays, British Telecom, eBay, Innovation Norway, Marriott Hotels, Coats Bank, and HP Consulting. She is known as a conversation game changer in her approach as a leadership, performance, and communication consultant, specializing in harmonizing diverse behavioral issues and enabling leaders to foster a heart-centric, inclusive culture for thriving business results. Her strategic guidance enables businesses to cultivate cultural excellence, nurture people centricity, and create an environment that fosters innovation and continuous development. There's so much to learn about this amazing doctor, but we're going to let her tell it. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Pauline Crawford.
How you doing, Doc? How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastically. I'm a bit bowled over by hearing my own bio. But I've been around in the world a long time, so maybe that's the reason I've got so much done.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on the show ever since we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I was just tickled pink when you accepted to come on so soon. So I'm excited, and our listeners and our viewers are excited as well. Dr. Crawford, can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up, and what keeps you so inspired to do all the great things that you're doing?
Well, thank you so much for asking me. I grew up in the leafy suburbs of North London, England. And it was a long time ago, just not long after World War II, actually. And life was very pleasant. It was very family oriented. I went to the local school. We were part of the Catholic Church. My family there were 4 of us. So I had an elder brother, elder sister, and a brother, younger brother. And we went on lots of family holidays. My whole upbringing was very blessed with conversations. And I loved tea parties. This is a very British thing. I live in America now, and Americans don't drink tea, whereas British people do. If anything happens, let's have a cup of tea. But in my upbringing, we were very often in tea parties of 14 or 15, 16 family members. And I remember conversations and listening to them as a kid and thinking, gosh, I love the way adults talk. Some of them are a bit annoying, but generally, I just loved the idea of conversation. So that's where I started.
You said you just love the conversations. Oh yeah, what are some of your fondest memories regarding your upbringing? Not just that, but where you're at today. The things
Well,
that you sit back and think about, and you're like,
yes,
wow.
I do think that our upbringing is so important. I know that, you and I have had very different upbringings, but the people in that upbringing are so important, especially my father and mother. They were a great influence on my life because they were always very go, 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 go people. They would do things. They wouldn't sit around and do nothing. And they taught me so many lessons. My father in particular taught me about responsibility. He always said, Pauline, whatever you do, take responsibility. And I think that's been with me the whole of my life. I remember being at the local school, and it might sound like I was a gossip, but I always knew what everybody was up to. And everybody would come to me. I was like the conversation conduit. They would come and say, oh, what's going on over there? What's going on over here? And I truly loved my school life, not for the academic side, but for the people side. And that really was what I loved. I went to university. I had a boyfriend there who I eventually married. And in fact, today is my 50-year anniversary of our marriage. Sadly, he's not with us now, but we had a wonderful experience being students in the 60s. You imagine, with all the Beatles and everything was a buzz. But when I got into business, this is really where I started. I went to work for Thompson Holidays, which was a very new holiday company in the days before telephones that you could call on, mobiles and internet. It was very much about experiment and adventure. And I remember it was full of boys and girls. It was a very mixed gender, very fun atmosphere. And I learned about business in that environment. I was very lucky, I think. And so later on in my life, after I had my children, I started getting this urge to be an entrepreneur. I thought, I can't just sit around and make cakes. I did make dresses. I was a dressmaker, but I wasn't kind of a stay-at-home, just be at home kind of person. And really, that's where I started thinking about people. I became an image consultant, and that was very important for me in the 90s. I had an extremely wonderful business with an American business partner, female, and we were working in major organizations. And this was where it was fun, helping men especially to understand how they could wear lovely colors. And all of that led me into what really has been the fulfillment of my life, which is the idea of corporate heart. Because in the late 90s, I was thinking, and remember, this is before the internet really took off, or social media. I was thinking, why don't men and women understand each other? Why don't people just get on and enjoy work and be engaged and do what they do best? And I started engaging. And interestingly enough, some of my first clients were banks, which, dare I say, are very male organized. And so Coutts Bank and Barclays, and then British Telecom, again, these very huge monolith organizations with thousands of people running around not really being heartfelt. And that's where corporate heart came into being, because I thought there has to be a heart to any business to make it work. And that's where, again, I got involved with people. So those memories are really strong in my UK experience. And I was in the UK until my 60s. So I did work in other countries, but my base was UK, was very much British international organizations, and the women and men at the top. And just as a quick story, I remember working with a very, very senior appointed woman at British Telecom. She wouldn't quite take me to the boss because she was slightly afraid of equality to the boss. I rest my case. We need to crack this code.
I like it. I like that. So you don't wore so many hats, and you continue to wear a lot of hats. Can you tell our listeners and our viewers about some of the hats that you have worn, and some major hats that you're wearing today?
Well, this is a very interesting question, because I know sometimes people say, all these hats. I'm actually a magician, which we'll come to in a minute, but I love waving the wand and spinning plates. But there's always a theme. It's always about people, and it's always about authentic harmony. It's about how do you know yourself, and how do you know the other people you're with? So where I was involved with the University of Entreprenology as a program director, Entreprenology is about entrepreneurs, men and women, really getting into that mindset of growth, of success like you do. And I love that, because it's all about people. But women have been marginalized over the decades. So that's where this thread of how do men and women really understand the value they bring together. So my other hat, which is this G100 positive masculinity, which actually is a recent appointment, is very important for not just for men, but for men, especially in environments where, dare I say, things have not gone very well for women. So I'm working a lot with this movement, which actually started in Africa. But the main thing is, and I want to just say this, is when I say positive masculinity to a man, there's a very good response. When I say equality to a man, there's a less positive response, because it feels like, oh, where am I in this mix? So authentic harmony and positive masculinity, I think, are the keys to cracking the leadership code for men. So my other hat, which is just taken on the president of the Rotary Club of Global Impact. The key there is the word global. I'm really not a local person. I see myself as a global citizen. So I love the idea of connecting with my contacts in Ghana, in South Africa, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, and in England, and in Europe, and in Malaysia, where I used to live. For me, that's almost the connectivity conversation of the world. So I do wear lots of hats, but they all have conversation at the core.
Wow. Yeah, you wear a whole lot of hats, and you're doing a whole lot of things. We got to take a station break right now, but I cannot wait to get back and start talking about cracking the code, to start talking about GDI maps and a lot of other great things that we're going to talk about. So whichever platform that you're watching this on or listening to it on the radio, all you have to do is just go to your platform, ask this great doctor any question that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer. Right, Doc?
Absolutely. Spot on.
It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do.
Welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you, this first segment it got me all excited. It got me all excited with Dr. Crawford telling and teaching us and educating us, inspiring us on cracking the code. Now we really getting ready to get off into what she meant by cracking the leadership code of life. So we're gonna talk about that. And again, if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments section on whichever platform you're watching this on, and I promise you we'll get you on. Doc, the title of the show is Cracking the Leadership Code of Life. What exactly does that mean?
Well, when you crack something open, you find out what's inside. So you crack the egg open, crack the walnut, you start looking at what's inside. And that for me was, how do we look inside leadership? Well, leadership has been, dare I say, harsh or hateful or torturous or just authoritative, and indeed has excluded some people. Now, in the world of business where leaders come together, men and women alike, we know that there is still a challenge for women across the world. They're marginalized in many situations in life and in business. I believe in the world of business, about 2% of the world's CEOs are female. That's not a lot. So it's not about a female empowerment approach at all. It's about how do we crack the leadership code so that we all get into the same template of heart-centered leadership? How can we move from a point of authority, dare I say, cracking the whip, which I don't think is the right way to do things, to actually, if you like, being heartfelt? That's the whole thing with Corporate Heart International. It was, where's the heart of business? And it's not wishy-washy, because when we're in a heartfelt style, we're healthy, we're happy, we bring happiness to other people. And health, especially mental health, is a real issue at the moment. And so cracking the leadership code is really inviting men and women alike to get into a conversation. There's that conversation again. And in order to do this, I looked at my own style and I thought, okay, how am I dealing with other women, with men? And I had a very logical approach to it. And I thought, that's interesting. And I love geometry. So I drew a map. And this is what I shared with you, Dr. Cooley, as you really liked. So I've got it lurking here behind me.
I want to get off into that GDI map, and I want you to show the world and explain it to them.
Okay, so we just move this into sight, and hopefully people will actually see this. But if I explain it in a very simple terms, it's a diagram about men and women. So on this side of the map are all the men in the world who are task focused. So that's what men are primarily, either or, yes, no, task focused. Women are on this side of the map. And as you see, there's a lot more curves and curls on this side because women are more circular. We're more chatty. We're more multitasking. And that's fundamental research on who we are as men and women. But of course, we're not all the same men. And we're not all the same women. So when I said, right, okay, where's my logic coming from? Where's my masculine energy? Where was that logic preference? And here I am sitting on this side of the map. And I always say, what are we doing? What are we doing? I come up with ideas, too many sometimes, but I'm ideas. A lot of people, but it's ideas and conversation. Down here, we've got the women who love nurturing and ask who is in my camp? Who's going to be with me? And now we get to you guys. On this side, you're not all the same. Some of you are very bullet point, masculine-minded men. And some of you are feminine-minded men. They're highly intuitive. Dare I say Nelson Mandela would come into this quadrant. We do have very wise rulers. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of not so wise rulers in our political world, but we're not going to go there. We're going to look at how do we maximize? How do we really understand to talk out there? So the ruler key is, he says, when are we going to do it? Whereas the philosopher says, why? So a philosopher will say, I lead by asking why. Whereas the ruler will say, I lead by asking, when are we going to get the task done? So I'm making a simple matrix in order to understand a very complex story. But what I love Dr. Cooley, is you said, know who you are. In your break videos, you said, know who you are, know who you are. I believe we all know inside our hearts who we are. And what we want is to have a harmonious conversation. So this cracking the code is not me telling you who you are. It's inviting you to be on the map of conversation so that you understand other people who are not like you.
I love it. I mean, just like the other day when you was explaining that to me, and I said, this is fascinating. We have to talk about this on the show. Hey, Dr. Clem, bring you in the conversation. What you think about this map?
I'm really liking the way you've broken this down, Dr. Crawford. It leads me into what I experience in the boardroom, and I'm equating that to your diagram, and that's the quality of inclusion.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the quality of inclusion and how it's represented here. My question to you, Dr. Pauline, is how do you equate to men how to include women without being over insensitive to highlighting them in front of an audience?
Well, that's a beautiful question to ask, and thank you for asking me. I've interviewed a lot of men in 2 lots of research, and I'm going to start some more, asking men about men. How do you see the world? How do you see the world with women in it? And I asked, what would you advise a woman to manage a man, coming from a man's point of view? Think about it. And what they said was, don't smother us, mother us, or treat us as if we're a threat. And I think a lot of women don't understand men. So they want a very sensitive approach. They want men to be everything they want it to be. But I encourage people to understand that men are men, and you can pick up some, if you like, tips and techniques as to how to be sensitive to women without losing your masculinity, positive masculinity. And that's really important. So if I may, I'll give you an example of what I mean. There's evidence that men will say, 97% of men will say, we appreciate women. 97 or 95%, slightly different, of women say that men do not appreciate them. Where is it? Where does that equation have? It's not that men don't appreciate women, it's they sometimes don't appreciate them in the fashion at which they would like it to be. So, for instance, and I say this with love in my heart, women need a sensitivity and appreciation a load more times than a man does. So if you're appreciating a woman and you have to say it 10 times, it's probably just about enough. And I remember in many programs where men come up to me and say, oh, I really get that. How long do I have to do it? So one of the lovely things about you men is you're actually very straightforward and obedient when you want to be. And I really want people to be themselves. I often find women will say to me, oh, I'm just going to go and fix the men. And I go, I don't think that's a good idea. You can understand them and you can have conversations, but trying to fix somebody who's actually very different, because men and women are different, as well as the rule of being different to the philosopher. But fundamentally, for instance, when men say yes, or they nod their head, they mean it. When women say yes or nod their head, they don't always mean it. They mean, maybe. But in the boardroom, women have learned to nod or say yes. But sometimes they're thinking, oh, I've got another idea. And women ask questions, not necessarily wanting answers. That's the way we evolve our conversations. Whereas men tend to be very direct. They say what they say and they say answers. That's a question, that's an answer. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And thank you.
Wow. And I never heard or seen anybody break it down the way that you just did that. That was fascinating.
Thank you.
I got this question. So you mentioned something about according to one of the videos on my commercials, knowing yourself and knowing your values and the values of others. That's your superpower. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I think our presence and our persona and our values and our expertise are all slightly different things. So where we can agree with values, so if the value is heartfelt, it's about love, respect, trust, compassion, collaboration, authentic harmony. Yet if you ask all of these characters, how do you see those? How do you perceive them? What are the words you use? You might actually get different words. So if I took the word collaboration in the middle here, the ruler might see the collaboration, well, I like collaboration when people do what I want them to do. The philosopher might say, I like collaboration when I can sense what they're about. The sovereign might say, oh, when I know who's in the room, I can collaborate. And the magician says, well, I've got lots of ideas. We could go and collaborate doing this. It's all slightly different versions of collaboration. So having magical conversations, which is the subline of my book, Magical Conversations That Transform the World. I just want to mention what the key aspect is and ask you what you think, is to have no judgment. So to have no judgment until we really know everybody is a vital aspect of getting into a conversation, because I might say something, if I assume that you're seeing it the same way as me, and it's not true, we may go off on a tangent, even though we're talking about the same values. So your superpower is knowing who you are, and then the superpower is knowing somebody who's not like you and managing to tune in. So if I know that I'm sitting opposite a ruler who needs bullet points, I honor his bullet points. I don't say, oh, you've got to listen to me, and I've got tens of hours, and I talk so much, he's gone to sleep. So I would also counsel the ruler to say, the women at your table of meeting have lots of good ideas. So if you do ignore them and only do your bullet points, you may miss out. So here's a technique into how to understand them. And in my experience with clients who really didn't like each other, I had some teams where they just really didn't get on. And once they understand the difference between them, they start to appreciate that actually, oh, you've got the talent I need. You don't run the same time schedule as me, but I can manage that. But we both agree that we're valuable. Okay, I'll go with it. And they start becoming friends. So your point, Dr. Clem, about inclusion, it's only inclusive if we go through this pathway of understanding each other. We can't just say, we must be inclusive, and you're not, because it's judgmental.
Yeah. We're gonna hold that thought because we got to take a station break. But this is incredible. We're gonna take a station break, and our audience, I know that you liking what you hear and you learning a lot. Don't be afraid to be part of the conversation. Just go to the comments, ask this great doctor any question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life. We'll be back shortly after the break.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me, and I can't get rid of this feeling. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can't be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't
Welcome back to It's Your Life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley, and I tell you, just having so much fun with this absolutely fantastic guest. And wow, it's amazing the way that you are explaining all of these different. I wouldn't call them techniques, but it's just that's the way of the world. I mean, and if we don't, and that chart is amazing. If we don't understand that, and we know that we're doing this, but no one has ever broke it down like this before, and told both sides. And what you think, Dr. Clem?
I think simplicity is the key, and I'm liking this chart because I can get in a snapshot exactly the thought processes and the leadership
Yeah.
preferences of both men and women, and it's sitting right there in front of my face. I like that.
I love it. But before we go, I got to always put a plug in for my new book. And that just came out about 2.5 weeks ago. And one of the co-contributors is Dr. Clem is here with us. A Black Man Point of View, Mind, Body, and Soul. And it talks about why, in some cases, why we act like we do. And it goes back to 400 years of colonizations where we was taken away. A lot of people say, you were plucked away from Africa, put on boats and sent to all of these countries and stuff like that. And my thing is that it's a learning experience. Our forefathers and mothers went through and built lots and lots of things for countries and on sweat and tears that they sacrifice their lives and for us to be free today. And a lot of times we don't think a lot about that, but it's important that we know where we came from, because if you don't know where you come from, you certainly don't know where you're going. And so a Black Man Point of View is a roadmap of what happens in the past. However, that is the past, and we have to learn to love, trust, live with each other, respect each other. We have to learn, regardless of whether you're black, white, pink, gold, or purple. It's a roadmap to just let you have an understanding of what goes on in a Black man's head and why we think the way we do on many occasions. Yeah, so we got that out the way.
And I just want to compliment you, Dr. Cooley, because it is so important that every culture understands themselves. And what's fascinating is in every culture, there's men and women. And I always remark on the fact that babies appear to be made the same way. So we're not that dissimilar across the world. I wanted just to read this quote from my book, because it's appropriate, I think. It's like, what you're saying is we need to value the I am. And in my book, The Power of Authentic Harmony, and it's magical conversations that transform our world, and that's across our world. This quote is, value the I am within you, be at peace with others, welcome them with joy, and know their true value looks you in the eye. You know when somebody is being authentic with you. And I believe we know when people are not being authentic with us. And that's where we need to not argue or step back, but actually step forward and say, how are we different? Let's talk about it. Let's find out who we are and use this map. I always say to people, everybody's on this map, because some people say, oh, I'm not on your map. I say, you're breathing. And I believe, and I'm biased, but I believe we can discuss every diversity by having the map, having the archetypes, but then having the rule: no judgment, no anger, and no coercion. This is what this book is about. No judgment, no anger, no trying to control other people. Allow them to be and find solutions together.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your book and where we can get it at? And I know that we got a code here that we.
Yes, anybody can buy. Obviously, we can buy the paperback and the hardback from Amazon, but you can get the ebook to start with on my website. There's a link, and giving 50% off for the special program that we're on. So the code is It's Your Life. So if you do go to my website and buy the ebook and put it's your life code, you'll get it for half. And that's around $5. And very affordable. But really, the reason this is the first of many books I'm going to produce, and the next one will be more about the detail of cracking the leadership code. But in here is very much the philosophy of being in that space of no judgment, and don't make assumptions. We're in a world which is very tortured at the moment. I think it's in a world that's very challenging at so many levels, male to female, country to country, preferences to preferences, diversity. And for me, unless we get into conversation without judgment, we're not going to step anywhere near the solution. I'd love to know your thoughts on that as well.
Well, I believe that we have to, first of all, we mentioned the thing respect. We have to be respectful for each other, whatever a person might believe, or whatever they might think. We don't have to get into a full-fledged argument with them and I'm right and you are wrong and all of that stuff, because that only creates division among people. I'm a strong believer with that. I'm not going to be sitting back, and I'm going to say it. I'm not going to sit back and argue with a fool. I mean, there is no reason in the world to sit back and just go all off on let them do the same. So it's so important that we understand each other. But most importantly, Doc, it's the respect thing.
Yes.
Respect.
Well, I think as well, it's very much about listening. I'm very keen, and I'd love to share with you, I'm very keen to help the younger generations. I mean, obviously from very young, but certainly the young adults, those people now who are boys and girls alike, who are looking ahead and wondering, what is going on? And this is where my passion with Entreprenology comes out. I want them to understand their archetype, but to also think about what's their natural traits, what are their gifts, what could they create? And they might not all be entrepreneurs, but who do they want to work with? Rather than going into the, dare I say, the past and the traditional nature of control and command, let's open up this flexibility. It's not about working for me, it's working with me. It's all about the language mastery of cracking the leadership code. And that's what's in the book is, especially if you're a musician or you sing, you know what harmony is about. And so look for that in the words you use. And even this simple guide, the ruler says when, and the philosopher says why, the sovereign says who, and I always say what. And I get people laughing because I go, it's not that I'm not a who person, but I'm a what person. So what are we doing? And I mean, there's been many, many personal, professional development programs around visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. But this is the only tool that actually looks at male and female, gender dynamics, intelligence. And I think there's so much argument about, dare I say, toxic behavior, violence against women, boys having suicide. We just need to get our act together as young people and adults and mature people like myself. Certainly, I want to share and create a world which is harmonious.
So with that being said, a couple of quick questions, put them together. Why is it so important to have a clear mindset and self-belief to embrace value creation? And why is it so difficult for people to understand that philosophy?
That's a really, really good question. The fundamental point is, do you believe you have value? Once we believe that we have value, and I mean that as basic, I don't mean anything to do with your credentials or your learning or anything, just the fact that you're a human being, you're living, breathing, you were born, you may even not have all the limbs that I have, but you're here. So you have a value. If you honor the value, then it's part of your persona. It's part of who you are and how you give that to other people. So the second part of value creation is what you give to other people in any relationship, even if it's at the supermarket, at the checkout, or with your best friend or your boss. What value do you add that is good and wholesome and loving? And then that is the only way we create a whole world. So if you look at it, it's you, yourself, the me, it's you and me, and then it's the we, it's the world. Now, I think a majority of people, sadly, in this traveled world, think that the outside is going to solve everything for them. And that's really where this conundrum comes up. It's like, I haven't got money, I haven't got status, I haven't got this, I haven't got that. Well, that's all external. So my advice to somebody asking that question is focus inward on your own value and start giving that in small amounts to anybody you meet, and your world will change, and our world will change.
Dr. Clem?
That is great, and I have a question about. I'm a CEO, and I'm sitting here. My numbers are up. My business is going well. Why is this type of conversation? Why would this be important to me? And how can I use these frameworks, and what would it grow inside of my business?
That's an excellent question, and one I ask my clients regularly. It's about maximizing performance. If you look at it from a CEO point of view, if you can tell me hand on heart the business is doing well and you have no dysfunctional employees, you have nobody sick, you have nobody who's tense, then I would say you're doing it right. See, I always quote Sir Richard Branson as my hero because I always feel that he manages his business with this value about people. But if you're looking at your business and you want to maximize it, then your assets are in your people. And you've got to be really sure that they are 100%, maybe never 100% to work, that they are healthy, happy, motivated, they're doing what they do best. And that's where you need the conversation. And we must be careful not to make assumptions, because many leaders maybe don't notice the Titanic is going down until it's really going down. And they say, no, this is an unsinkable ship. My business is fine. Hey, pandemic. Well, we didn't notice that coming, didn't we? So what we've got now is the value of women in the workplace is one specific area where I think business leaders, especially men who don't have women on board, could maximize it, but change the conversation. Don't just put them in there because you think it's a good idea. Actually look at the talent that is there and the talent in your team. And that's where the framework is a starting point.
Wow. We're going to take a station break. But It's going to be a short one this time because I want to get back and I want to continue this conversation. And so it's not too late to be part of the conversation. All you do is go to the comments and ask any questions that you like. Promise you we'll get you an answer. It's your life. We'll be back shortly after the break.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and Dr. Pauline Crawford. I'm just loving this. It's such an education, and it's such an inspiring conversation that I think we need about 10 hours.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
we got to do this again. I'm just
Yes.
putting it out. I'm just putting it out there right now. We got to do a part 2. No doubt about that. What do you think, Dr. Clem?
Oh, definitely. I just have so many questions just based on what we've already talked about right now, and the way you frame things in the corporate environment. I see you put in the chat. I hope everybody's listening to what you're talking about.
Thank you. And I wanted to remark on your comment in the chat, Dr. Clement, when you said women talking together, men talking together. It's one of the things that in a world where we want to be together, there is advantage with being separate on occasion and then together. And when I do my classes where men and women are in the same room, I will put men at one table or 2 tables and women at the other 2 tables. And then we'll have mixed conversations and then back to separate, because unless we're in that separate space, we can't really understand ourselves. So my vision is that, a bit like using the GPS, if everybody uses the map, they go out into the communal space, then they use it with their own perspective. We all ride on the right side of the road, or the left, as it would be in England. But, there are certain rules to life. And these, I want to have these as absolutely everywhere, a bit like learning your times tables, and then approach difficult conversations. So if you like, what's the most difficult conversation between men and women, I think, is toxic behavior. Dare I say, the not so good things in the world. And we can have those conversations, but sometimes we need to have them in our separate groups and then come together with true value and understanding.
Perfect.
Doc, you talk about diversity, harmony as it is aligned with DEI. Can you talk about that a little bit more and give our audience a better understanding of that?
Yes, I'm very concerned in one sense and very enhanced in another.
Mhm.
I think the advantage of DEI is that we bring awareness. The disadvantage is if it is a policy that's controlling things without awareness, the danger is it becomes rigid and people stand behind it. A policy is policing. And so I think if there's a DEI policy involved, how conscious are you as a leader? How conscious is everybody of how they use this? Diversity and inclusion, when it first came into the awareness, I always thought it was quite funny because diversity is like that and inclusion is like that. So it needs conversation, it needs awareness, and there'll always be traumatic cases where things go wrong and we need to deal with them maybe at a deeper psychological level. But what I find with the magical conversation is that when you get people into that space and you're aware of who they are, they love being there because their ego is not allowed in the circle. So I always say to people, you leave your ego outside the door and you come in not with your title, but just with your person. And you look at the subject matter on the table between you all and you talk about your experiences. And you don't judge anybody. You may hear things that you don't like, but you just say, that's an interesting perspective. That's the starting point.
You also, and we only got 4 minutes, but I'm trying to get a lot of this in here because you talk about culture competency. And can you tell us how important is that?
I think it's really important. I lived in Malaysia for 4 years after 65 plus years in the UK. So although I had traveled, I'm a UK culture. In a Malaysian culture, it's so different. And I really understood you have to be attentive and understand and be understanding of, if you like, almost the politeness of how you listen to another culture. I think it's something else that we've lost. Now I live in America, which is another culture again, and it's different by different states. So you've got to listen and be aware. It doesn't mean you drown inside somebody's culture, but you honor it. For example, in Malaysia, Malaysian Muslim women do not shake hands with Muslim men. or any man. I, as a Westerner, can shake a hand with a man. So in my programs, I would explain that, but it's just a politeness rather than saying, oh gosh, that's silly. No, that's coming from a Western culture. So I think as the world is changing so rapidly, we have to be more careful at that, but don't let it stop us meeting. Honor somebody else's culture and invite conversation again. That's really experience. That's a really interesting experience. That's a really interesting perspective. Tell me more. That's the way we get forward.
Wow. You know, before we get too far, a couple of minutes, can you tell people how can they get in touch with you and list your services, buy your book again, all of these great things?
Okay, well, very simply, remember Corporate Heart International. That's my website. I'm on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I've got 2 pages on Facebook, my business page, my personal, but either one. And also I'm on Instagram, occasionally on Twitter. But Pauline Crawford, you'll find me. My book is on my website as an ebook. And as I said, there's a special code, so you can get it for half the price. I love doing programs like managing difficult conversations. So as well as cracking the leadership code, I do one-on-one programs about, so you've got a difficult conversation coming up. You don't need to bring that person with you, but I can help you solve it.
What are a couple of takeaways, 30 seconds or less, that you want our viewers to get from this absolutely wonderful interview?
Thank you. I think it really comes back to value who you are and don't listen to naysayers. You know, the classic, oh, all men are, all women are, all old people are, all Black people, or whatever it is. Don't listen to that. Value yourself and take your own perspective, but do it without judgment, without anger, and without trying to control anybody else. And you will receive all the treasures that you need. Dr.
Crawford, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the James Cooley Show. As I mentioned, we got to have you back again.
Oh, I'd love to.
When your time allows. Dr. Clem, you know, man, come on. Thank you. I got to thank Dr. Michelle Cooley for putting together another show, another wonderful show. And most importantly, I like to thank my listeners and viewers out there for tuning in to the James Cooley Show. It's your life daily. I hope everybody come back. We're starting over again Monday. We're starting over all week, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. We'll see you Monday. It's your life